Alright, 5.3 talks about slope-intercept form, a very important concept in Algebra 1. So, let's get started here. A line has two main characteristics. One is where the line crosses the x-axis, or the y-axis, I'm sorry. This is the y-intercept, or the b. And the other characteristic is how the graph moves from one point to the next. This is the slope, or our m. When you put these two characteristics together, you can write the equation of a line in the form y equals mx plus b. This way of writing the equation of a line is referred to as slope-intercept form. Alright, so our class warm-up is we're going to find the slope of the line that passes through the 2 points, 0, negative 1, and 3, comma 1. And we're going to do it first by using the slope formula, and then we're going to follow that by using a graph. Alright, so the 3 steps for using the slope formula. The first is to label the points x sub 1, y sub 1, and x sub 2, y sub 2. So the first point, or the first ordered pair, the x coordinate will be our x sub 1, and the y coordinate will be our y sub 1. And then our second point, the x is going to be, the first x there is going to be our x sub 2, and then the y 1 is going to be our y sub 2. Alright, now what we're going to do is we're going to substitute the values into this formula. So our y sub 2 is 1, so we have 1 minus our y sub 1, which is negative 1. So make sure you put in parentheses around that negative 1 there, or if not, the double negative is going to make it a positive, which we'll see in a minute. And then our x sub 2 is 3 minus our x sub 1, which is 0. Alright, so what's this going to equal? Again, our double negative here becomes a positive, so 1 plus 1 is going to give us 2. And then we have 3 minus 0, which is 3. If that's not simplified, you obviously would simplify that and reduce it. 2/3 is already simplified, so slope is 2/3. Alright, so I'm going to put that m there just to let everybody know you're finding slope. Alright, the second method is going to be using a graph. So you want to plot the points, 0, negative 1. And 3, comma 1. Alright. Okay, now to find the slope, we're going to count the rise vertically from the left point to the right point. Alright, so we're going to go 1, 2. We're going to go up 2 vertically. Since we went up, the 2 is going to be positive. So what we found there was our rise. Right, sometimes the rise is up, sometimes the rise is down. If it's down, if you move down, then you're going to be negative. Right, but we went up, so it's positive. And then our run is going to be 1, 2, 3 to the right. So we went up 2, we went to the right 3. Since we went to the right, that's also positive, so as you can see we get the same slope of 2/3. Now we're going to write the equation of each line in slope-intercept form for the next part of this lesson. Now, in order to write something in slope-intercept form, you need to know the slope and you also need to know the y-intercept. Alright, so actually let me make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is find what the slope is. So what you're going to do is you're going to pick two spots where the line crosses what we call the lattice points. So the lattice points are like these corners here of the graph. Alright, so there's a crosses a lattice point here. It's really hard to draw tiny circles. There we go, with this pen. And then another lattice point is, let's say right here. Okay, so let's calculate the slope. So let's do our rise first. So we know slope equals rise over run. And we use this when we're trying to find the slope from a graph. Alright, if we were given 2 points, we would use the slope formula y sub 2 minus y sub 1 equals x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Alright, so our rise. So to go from this spot to this spot, we have to go down 1, 2, 3, 4. Since we went down, our rise is going to be negative. And then we go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Since we went to the right, our run is positive. So our final slope is negative 4/5. Alright, now our B, that's our y-intercept. That is where the graph crosses the y-axis. So where does the graph cross the y-axis? Right there, at that point, which is the ordered pair 0, 1, or the y-intercept will just be 1. Okay, now we have to plug it in the slope-intercept form, which is y equals, oops, looks like an x, y equals mx plus b. So our m is negative 4/5. Put that in parentheses. Then write x. And then what's our b? It's a positive 1. Alright, so that's the first one. For the second one, again, same things. Find where the graph crosses the lattice points. So I see one here and here. Alright, so the slope, to go from this dot to that dot, we're going up 1. So m equals, our slope equals rise over run. So we're going to go up 1. Since we went up, it's positive. And then we go to the right one. Since we went to the right, it's positive as well. So our slope equals 1. Our y-intercept, or our b, where does it cross? Where does this line cross the y-axis? Right there at 4. Alright, so plug into slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, so our m is 1, and then we write x, but mathematically speaking, we don't usually put the 1 in front of the x like that. We just write x, the 1 is implied, and then our b is positive 4. Alright, for number 3, let's see, we have a lattice point there, and it doesn't look like we have another one until right here. Alright, so slope equals rise over run. So we go from here to here. I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Since I went up, the 7 is positive. And then over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Since I went to the right, 5 is positive. So my slope is equal to 7/5. The y-intercept, where does the graph cross the y-axis? Well, it does so right at that point right there. Oops. And so that's going to be y equals -5. Put them together, so slope-intercept form is equal to y equaling mx plus b. So your m is 7/5. Put the x, and then what's our b? -5. Alright, for number 4, the lattice points here and here. Alright, so how do we go from this point to this point? Well, to find the slope, it's rise over run. So this one we're going down 1, 2, 3. So the rise, since I went down, is negative. So we have -3, and then the run is 1, 2, 3, 4. So -3/4 is the slope. Where does it cross the y-axis? Right here at -3. So we're going to have our equation in slope-intercept form, y equals -3/4 x minus 3. In number 5, alright, notice how we have a vertical line. When you have a vertical line like that, your slope is what we say undefined. Right, so you're not going to have any slope. This graph does not cross the y-axis, so there's no y-intercept. And so you're saying, okay, well then, how do I write an equation for this line? Well, vertical lines, where does this cross the x-axis? It crosses the x-axis at 4. Alright? As a matter of fact, every point on this line has an x-coordinate of 4. And so that's how we would name this line. We would say that this is the line x equals 4. Alright? This line right here, this vertical line, alright, every point on this line has an x-coordinate of -3, so that would be the line x equals -3. Alright, in problem 6 here, now we have a horizontal line. Alright, so this line, if I was to tell you what would be the slope of a flat road, you would probably tell me that the slope of a flat road would be 0, and you would be correct. So the slope is going to be 0. The y-intercept, where's it cross the y-axis? At -4. So we have y equals mx plus b. So 0x is just 0. So that would go away, it would be nothing. And then what's our y-intercept? -4. So y equals -4 is what the equation of this line would be. So vertical lines, how would you name those? X equals, whatever the x-intercept. of that line is, and then for horizontal lines, we're going to name them as y equals whatever the y-intercept is. So this line right here, it's a horizontal line. Its y-intercept is 3. Every y-coordinate on that line is 3. So that's how you would name it. Okay, the next part is when you're given an equation in slope-intercept form, how do you graph it? So the first thing you want to do is plot the y-intercept. The second thing is then use the slope to plot more points. And then finally connect those points with a line. And then be sure to have arrows. Okay, so we're going to graph the line y equals 2x minus 1. So the first thing you're going to do is plot the y-intercept. Actually, you know what? Let's write down what the slope is, and then what our b or our y-intercept is. So our slope is 2. All right. Now, when your slope given is a whole number, we're going to write it over 1. So that's what this finishes up and says. So we're going to write our slope as 2 over 1. And then our y-intercept is going to be negative 1. And we're going to plot the y-intercept first. So there's negative 1. And then from this point, we need additional points. And we're going to use the slope in order to get those additional points. So slope is equal to rise over run. So I'm going to rise 2, 1, 2, and go over 1. So that'll put me right here. So up 2 over 1. Now you can stop here and connect with a line, or you can continue to make the graph more accurate. So up, and that's what I'll do. So up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. Now you can also, 2 over 1 is the same thing as negative 2 over negative 1. A negative via negative would give you a positive. So I can also go down 2 and to the left 1. And then I connect the points with a line and make sure I draw my arrows. Alright, we'll do one more. Well, we'll do 2 more. Alright, we have y equals 1/3 x plus 1. So our slope equals rise over run, and that's 1/3. And then our y-intercept is positive 1. So we're going to plot our y-intercept first, which is 1. And then I'm going to go up 1, because my rise is positive, and then over 3 to the right, because the 3 is positive. So that's going to put me right there. Now, positive 1 over positive 3 is the same thing as negative 1 over negative 3. So I can go down 1 to the left 3. Connect with a line. Alright, and then for the last one, remember what I said about horizontal lines. So horizontal lines, how do we write them? Y equaling whatever the y-intercept is. So here we can rewrite this actually too if it helps. Y equals 0x plus 2. So the y-intercept is positive 2. So you go up 2, plot your point, and then there's no slope. The slope is 0. So we would just draw that right there. So that would be y equals 2. If I wanted x equals 2, it's a vertical line. through x equals 2. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up this video. The rest of the problems, that's where we'll start in class. See you tomorrow.